We are glad you guys came this morning. You're going to be able to see some amazing actors and actresses from 9th, 10th, and 11th and 12th grade. We have our younger characters today playing the younger versions of Amy, Meg, Beth, Joe, and Laurie. So we're excited to be able to partner up with some junior high students. They're excited and we're excited. We had a few hiccups with snow days and COVID, and please, COVID, just go away. I'm just so tired of COVID. So tired of COVID. Anyway, without further ado, we want to get the show started for you. Welcome to the JHS production of Little Women.
She was the tomboy and the tartar of the family. And as usual, she was the first to say what everyone was thinking.
Christmas won't be Christmas without
everyone. We ought to not spend money.
the much that we would give would not do the army any good. We each have $1, and they wouldn't be helped much by that. I agree not to expect anything from Mother or you, but I did want to buy.
But with Father far away in the war, everyone had to make sacrifices. Meg worked as a governess, and Jo spent her days as a paid companion to their cantankerous Aunt Marge.
How would you like to be shut up for hours with that fun?
Older girls away at their jobs and little Amy off at school, Beth became the homemaker of the family. But if she complained this once, it was a rarity.
At least
Always complained that she filled her primers with pictures of clouds and rabbits. The clock struck 6, and having swept up the hearth, Beth put a pair of slippers down to warm before the fire. Somehow the sight of the old shoes had a good effect on the girls. Mother was coming, and everyone brightened to welcome her.
These are worn out. Had some handkerchiefs, all hemmed.
I shall get a little bottle of cologne. She likes it, and it won't cost much, and I'll still have money.
Price Marmy. We will need to go shopping tonight. There is much to do about the play for Christmas.
I'm not acting anymore after this. I'm far too old for such things.
You will continue acting until you can't trail around in a white gown with your hair down wearing paper gold jewelry. You're the best actress we've got, and it would be the end of everything if you quit.
Glad to see you so merry, my girls. There was so much to do, getting the boxes ready for tomorrow, that I didn't come home to dinner. Has anyone called Beth? How's your cold, Meg? Joe, you look tired to death. Come and kiss me, dear. With these maternal inquiries, Mrs. March got her wet things off and her warm slippers on. The girls flew about, making things comfortable, each in her own way. Meg arranged the tea table. Joe brought wood and set chairs, dropping, overturning, and clattering everything she touched. Beth trotted to and fro between the parlor and the kitchen, quiet and busy, and Amy gave directions to everyone. I've got a treat for you all.
A letter! 3 cheers for Father!
Yes, a nice long letter. He is well, and he sends all sorts of loving wishes for Christmas and a special message for you girls.
Letters were all the March women had of their father that hard winter, but as hard as his absence was to bear, they knew his trials were much worse. Yet this was a hopeful, cheerful letter, full of lively depictions of camp life, marches, and military news. And only at the end did the author's heart overflow with fatherly love and longing for the little girls at home.
Give them all my dear love and a kiss. Tell them I think of them by day, pray for them by night, and find my best comfort in their affection at all times. A year seems a very long time to wait before I see them, but I know they will remember all I said to them, that they will be loving children to you, do their duty faithfully, and conquer themselves so beautifully that when I come back to them, I may be fonder and prouder than ever of my little women.
I am a selfish girl, but I'll truly try to do better so he won't be disappointed in me.
I think too much of my looks, and I hate to work, but I won't anymore.
I will try to be what he loves to call me, a little woman, and not be so rough and wild, but do my duty here instead of wanting to be somewhere else.
Beth said nothing, but wiped away her tears with the army sock and began to knit with all her might. When the 4 girls came downstairs that Christmas morning, they found only old Hannah. She had lived with the family since Meg was born and was considered a friend more than a servant. "Where's Mother?" "Goodness only knows. Some poor creature came a-begging, and your ma went straight off to see what was needed. There never was a woman like her for giving."
Here she comes! Hide the basket, quick!
Merry
Christmas, Marty! Many of them!
Merry Christmas, little daughters. Come, gather close. I want to say something before we sit. Not far from here lives a poor woman and a little newborn baby. There are 6 children huddled into one bed to keep from freezing because they have no fire. There's no food over there. My girls, will you give them your breakfasts as a Christmas present?
We're so glad you came before we decided to eat.
May I go and help carry the things for the poor little children? I shall take the cream in the muffin.
I thought you'd do it. You shall all go and help me. It was a very happy breakfast. And when they went away, leaving comfort behind, I think there were not in all the city 4 merrier people than the little girls who gave away their breakfasts that Christmas morning.
Being still too young to go off into the theater, the girls put their wits to work and made whatever they needed. On Christmas night, a dozen girls piled into the bed, which was the dress circle, and the operatic tragedy began.
faithful minion Hagar, I am in need of thee.
What canst thy miserable servant have out of thee?
My faithful minion, canst thou brew a potion that will make the fair Zara adore me?
Hither, hither, from me on, airy sprite, I bid thee come. Bring to me with elfin speed a fragrant gold which I need.
Hither I come from my airy home, far in the silver moon. Take the magic spell and use it well, or its power will vanish soon.
Is this the potion that will win my love's heart for me?
Tis
Thanks, repulsive crone. But listen here, I am in further need of thee. The varlet Rodrigo threatens to upset my plans and steal my love.
But I will see what I can do. Approach now darkly from beyond. Come from bog and swamp and pond. Bring to me with awful haste death, poison, and the slightest taste.
Finally, a potion that will rid me of my enemies forever. Rodrigo, prepare to meet your doom. Ha 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 ha.
Joe's sisters considered her a regular Shakespeare for the stories she would come up with. And by the time this one was over, the girls were hungry indeed.
Just then, old Hannah appeared, with Mrs. March's compliments, and to ask what the ladies found to supper. Now this was a surprise, even to the actors. And it was like Marmee, something like this. But something so amazing as this was unheard of.
Is it fairies?
Santa Claus.
Mother did it.
Aunt March had a fit and sent the supper.
All wrong. Old Mr. Lawrence sent it.
Lawrence boy's grandfather? What in the world put that into his head?
Hannah told one of his servants about your breakfast party. He knew my father years ago, and he sent me a polite note this afternoon asking if he could express his friendly feelings toward my children by sending a few trifles in honor of the day.
That boy put it into his head. I know he did. He's a capital fella. I wish for us to get acquainted, but he is so bashful, and Meg is so prim that she won't let us speak to him when we pass.
The Lawrence boy, as the girls had taken to calling him, would soon become their dearest friend. And although he lived just next door, he and the girls would have their first meeting in another place altogether. It all began a few days after Christmas, when Joe and Meg received
An invitation! An invitation! Miss Gardner's invitation. Miss Gardner would like to see Miss March and Miss Josephine at a small dance on New Year's Eve. Marmee said we can go. Now what shall we wear?
Why ask that when you know we shall wear our poplin, since it is all that we have?
After various mishaps with her hair and her dress, Meg was ready for the ball. And with the united exertions of the entire family, Joe's hair was up and her dress was on.
gardener, a stately old lady, greeted them kindly and handed them over to Sally, the eldest of her 6 daughters. Welcome, my dears. So glad you could come. Sally wants to miss you around.
Oh, we all know lovely Meg, and this is her sister, Josephine.
Meg heard Sally and was at ease very soon, but Joe felt as out of place as a colt in a flower garden. She saw a big youth approaching her corner, and fearing he meant to dance, she slips into a curtain for her steps.
Oh, dear me. I didn't know anyone was back here.
Don't mind me. I only came here because I don't know many people. Felt caught up at first, you know.
You live near us, don't you?
Next door. And how's your cat, Miss March?
Very nicely, but I am not Miss March. I am only Joe.
I'm not Mr. Lawrence. I'm only Laurie.
Laurie Lawrence. What an odd name.
Well, my first name is Theodore, but I don't like it because the fellows kept on calling me Dora, so I made them call me Laurie instead.
I don't like my name either. How did you get the fellas to stop calling you Dora?
I thrashed them.
Oh, well, I can't thrash Aunt March, so I guess I'll just have to live with it.
Don't you like to dance, Miss Joe?
Yes, but Meg won't let me. Oh, you won't tell.
Never.
I have a bad habit of standing in front of the fire and I scorch my gowns. This one is scorched, it's mended nicely, but it shows.
Joe!
All right. I'm sorry. Will you excuse me?
I've sprained my ankle. That stupid high heel turn. How will I ever get home?
I knew you would hurt yourself wearing those silly shoes. Maybe Mr. Lawrence.
No, don't tell anyone.
Can I help you? Said a friendly voice. And there was Laurie, with a full cup in one hand and a tray of ice in the other. Joe led the way, and Laurie drew up a little table, and was so obliging that even proper Meg pronounced him a nice lad.
We should probably get going.
Please, let me take you home. It's on my way, and it's starting to rain.
It's early. You can't be needing to go yet.
I always go early. I truly do.
And that settled that. Soon, the Lawrence boy was practically one of the family. One day, Jo found herself shoveling paths of snow between the wide expanse between her little house and the Lawrence's stately mansion. She noticed Laurie gazing through the window in a forlorn kind of way.
How do you do? Are you ill?
Better, thank you. I've been sick for a week and stuck up here, still as tombs.
Then have someone come see you.
There isn't anyone I'd like to see. Always makes such a row and my head's weak.
Isn't there a girl who could read and amuse you? Girls are quiet.
Don't know any.
You know us.
Well, I suppose I do. Come, please.
Well, I am not nice and quiet, but shut your window like a good boy and I'll come.
And with that, Jo shouldered her broom and marched into the little house. Laurie was a flutter of excitement at the idea of having company and flew about the room to get ready, brushing his hair, putting on a fresh collar, trying to tidy up the room.
All right, show her up. It's Miss Jo.
Here I am, bag and baggage. Mother sends her love and says that I'm glad if I can do anything for you. Meg had me bring some of her blancmange. She makes it very nicely. And Beth, her cats, will bring you comfort.
Is Beth the rosy one who stays at home most times, but sometimes goes out with a little basket?
Yes, she's my girl, and a regular good one, too.
The pretty one is Meg, and the young one's Amy, correct?
Yes, but how?
I often hear you calling to one another. And when I'm up here all alone, I can't help but looking over. You always seem to be having such good times. I beg your pardon for being so rude, but sometimes you forget to put down the curtain down where the windows are. And whenever I look over there and the lamps are lighted, it's like looking at a painting to see you and your mother around the fire.
Well, we won't draw that window anymore, and I give you leave to look as much as you'd like. But I wish, instead of peeping, you would just come over. Wouldn't your grandpa let you?
I think he would, if your mother asked him. Grandpa's kind, though he doesn't look it. He lets me do what I want pretty much. It's only, he thinks I might be a bother to strangers.
We're not strangers. We're neighbors. And you needn't think you would be a bother.
You see, Grandpa lives among his books, and doesn't really care what goes on without. My tutor, Mr. Brooke, doesn't live here, so I have no one to go about with me, so I just stay here.
That's bad. You must go anywhere that you are invited, and then you'll have plenty of friends and go many pleasant places.
Laurie opened his mouth to ask another question, but realizing it was bad manners to make too many inquiries on people's personal affairs, closed it and sat uncomfortably. But Jo liked his good breeding and decided to go into detail about Aunt March, the old fidgety woman with a fat poodle and a parrot that spoke Spanish. She went into great detail about how one day a man came to swoon at March, and how mid-speech the bird just took his wig right off of his head. Laurie laughed so hard that tears ran down his face.
Oh, that does me no end of good. Tell on, please.
Much elated with her success, Jo did tell on, all about their plays and plans, their hopes and fears for father, and all about the little world in which the sisters lived in. And then they got to talking about books, and to Jo's delight, Laurie liked them as well as she did.
If you like him so much, come see ours. Grandpa's out, so you needn't be scared.
I am not scared of anything.
I don't believe you are. So come on then.
What richness, Theodore Lawrence! You must be the happiest boy in the world!
A fellow can't live alone on books.
Mercy me! It's your grandpa.
So what if it is? You're not scared of anything.
The doctor to see you?
I suppose I must go see him.
Don't mind me. I'm happy as a cricket here.
As Laurie left, his guest amused herself in her own way. She was standing in front of the portrait of an old gentleman when the door opened. Without turning her head, she said, "I'm sure I couldn't be afraid of him. He's got kind eyes, though his smile is grim, and he looks as though he has a tremendous will of his own. He's not as handsome as my grandfather, but I like him."
Thank you, ma'am. So you're not afraid of me?
No, sir.
And I'm not as handsome as your grandfather? And I have a tremendous will, but despite that, you like me?
Yes, I think so, sir.
You have your father's face, if not his spirit. He was a kind man, and an honest and brave one too. I was proud to be his friend.
Thank you, sir.
Do you think the boy needs some cheering up?
Yes, I think he is very, very lonely, and young folks could do him good. We are only girls, but we will do as much as we can, for we do not forget this splendid Christmas present.
That was the boy's affair. I will come meet your mother someday. Tell her so. There's the T-bell. Come on down and meet Nicholas.
When all of Joe's adventures had been told, the family found themselves eager to go visit him. Mrs. March wanted to talk about her father with the old man who had not forgotten him. Meg longed to walk in the conservatory. Beth sighed for the grand piano, and Amy for the fine pictures and statues. Everyone liked Laurie, and he privately informed his tutor that the Marches were regularly splendid girls. He was tired of books and found people so interesting now that Mr. Brooke was obliged to make very unsatisfactory reports.
But Beth, though yearning for the dear piano, could not pluck up the courage to go and see the Mansion of Bliss, as Meg called it. She went once with Joe, but the old gentleman, not being aware of her infirmity, stared at her so hard from under his heavy eyebrows and said, "Hey!" so loud that she ran away, declaring she would never go there any more, not even for the dear piano.
But no persuasions or enticements could overcome her fear, until it came about Mr. Lawrence's ear in some mysterious way, and he said about mending matters. You know, the boy has been neglecting his music as of late, and I fear the piano suffers from want of use. Perhaps some of the girls could come over for a time and practice on it, just to keep it in tune, you know? They needn't see or speak to anyone. Just come in any time they like. Please tell them if they wouldn't care.
Oh, sir, I do care. Very much.
Are you the musical girl?
I'm Beth, and I'll come if you are quite sure nobody will hear me and be disturbed.
Not a soul, my dear. The house is empty half the day.
Kind you are, sir.
I had a little girl like you once. She had eyes like those. God bless you. Good day to you, Adam.
After that, the little brown hood slipped through the hedge nearly every day, and the great drawing room was filled by a tuneful spirit that came and went unseen. She never knew that Mr. Lawrence opened his study door to hear the old-fashioned airs he liked. She never saw Laurie mount guard in the hall to warn the servants away.
Mother, I made Mr. Lawrence a pair of slippers. He is so kind to me, always, and must repay him. I don't know any other way. Can I bring them to him?
Yes, it'll please him very much and be a nice way of thanking him.
Beth worked away early and late, with occasional lifts over the hard parts. Then she wrote a simple note, and with Laurie's help, got her slippers smuggled into the study one morning. Then she waited. All day passed, and part of the next, and she was beginning to fear she had offended her crotchety friend. On the afternoon of the second day, she went out to run an errand, and on her return, she saw four heads popping in and out of the parlor window. When she appeared, several hands were waved, and several joyful voices screamed.
Here's a letter from the old gentleman. Come quick and read it.
Beth, he sent you.
Look, Beth. Look there.
Beth did look, and was pale with delight and surprise, for there stood a little cabinet piano, with a letter lying on the glossy lid, directed like a signboard to Miss Elizabeth March.
Yes, all for you, my precious. Isn't it splendid? Don't you think he is the dearest old man in the world? Oh, the key is in the letter.
You read it. I can't. Oh, it is too lovely.
Miss March, dear madam,
Oh, how nice it sounds. I wish someone would write to me like that.
I have had many pairs of slippers in my life, but never any that suited me as well as yours. Heartsease is my favorite flower, and these will always remind me of the gentle giver. I like to pay my debts, so I know you will allow the old gentleman to send you something which once belonged to the little granddaughter he lost. With hearty thanks and best wishes, I remain your grateful friend and humble servant, James Lawrence.
Humble servant? He's writing this to you?
Try it, honey. Let's hear the sound of the baby piano.
Oh, you will have to go and thank him.
Yes, I guess I better go now before I get frightened thinking about it.
And to the amazement of the assembled family, Beth walked deliberately down the garden, through the hedge, and in at the Lawrence's door.
Well, I wish I may die. That ain't the queerest thing I ever seen. The peony has turned her head.
They would have been still more amazed if they would have seen what Beth did after. If you will believe me, she walked right up to the study door and knocked. And when a gruff voice called out, "Come in," she walked right up to Mr. Lawrence and stuck out her hand, saying,
I came to thank you, sir, for...
But she didn't finish, for he looked so kindly to her that she had only remembered what he had lost. So she put both arms around his neck, kissed him, and kissed him. If the roof had flown off the house, Mr. Lawrence couldn't have been more astonished. But he was so pleased and touched by that confiding little kiss that all his crustiness vanished, and Beth ceased to fear him. When Beth went home, he accompanied her to her own gate, and shook hands cordially, tipped his hat, and walked back, stately and erect like the soldierly old gentleman that he was.
Many things changed that year. One early spring morning, little Amy, who fancied herself quite the fine young lady, was feeling sorry for herself.
I wish I had some money. Why? I'm dreadfully in debt. I owe at least a dozen pickled limes and I can't pay them.
The lime's the fashion now.
Well, you see, the girls are always buying them. Unless you want to be thought mean, you must do it too. They treat by turns, and I've had ever so many, but I haven't repaid them. And I must. They're debts of honor, you know?
How much will pay them off and restore your credit?
Oh, a quarter would more than do it, and I'd have some money left over for a treat for you. Don't you like limes?
Not much. Here, have my share. Make it last as long as you can.
Oh, thank you. It must be so nice to have pocket money. I shall have a grand feast. I've not tasted a lime this week. I felt delicate about taking any, as I knew I couldn't return them.
Next day, the rumor that Amy March had 24 delicious limes, she ate one on the way, circulated through her set, and the attentions of her friends became quite overwhelming. Kitty Brown invited her to her next party on the spot, and Ginny Snow, a satirical young lady who had twitted on Amy upon her limeless state, promptly buried the hatchet and offered to furnish answers for certain appealing sums. But Amy, having remembered Miss Snow's cutting remarks, instantly crushed her hopes.
You needn't be so polite all of a sudden, because you aren't getting any.
Excuse me, Miss Davis, ma'am, but Amy wants just pickled limes in her desk.
Now, Miss Davis had declared limes a contraband article, and solemnly vowed to publicly fool the first person found breaking the law. This much enduring woman had done everything that she could to keep 100 rebellious girls in order. To use the expressive language of a schoolgirl, she was as nervous as a witch and as cross as a bear. Miss March, come to the desk and bring with you the limes. Now take these disgusting things and throw them out the window. I'm sorry this has happened, but you remember what I said to you a week ago. I never allow my rules to be infringed, and I never break my word. Miss March, hold out your hand. Your hand, Miss March!
Amy set her teeth, threw back her head in defiance, and bore without flinching the tingling blows on her little palms. The blows were not many nor heavy, but it didn't make a difference to her. For the first time in her life, she'd been struck, and the shame was almost as deep as if she had knocked her down herself.
You will now stand on the platform until recess.
During the 15 minutes that followed, the proud and sensitive little girl suffered a shame that she never forgot. But the smart of her hand and the ache of her heart were forgotten in the sting of the thought.
Oh, I shall have to tell home, and they'll be so very disappointed in me.
You can go, Miss March. And go she did, straight out of the school and the schoolyard, never to return. No notice was taken of Amy's flight, except by her maids. But the sharp-eyed demoiselles noticed that Miss Davis was quite absent-minded that afternoon.
Before school closed, Jo appeared wearing a grim expression. She marched up to the desk and delivered a letter from her mother, then collected Amy's things and departed, carefully scraping the mud from her boots on the doormat as if brushing the dust off her feet.
Yes, you can have vacation from school, but I want you to study a little every day with Beth. I dislike Mrs. Davis's manner of teaching, and I don't think the girls you associate with are doing you any good.
I wish all the girls would leave and spoil her old school. It's just maddening. Think of all those lovely lines.
I'm not sorry you lost them, for you broke the rules and you deserved punishment.
You mean you're glad I was disgraced before the whole school?
I should not have chosen that way of mending a fault, but I'm not sure it would do you more good than a milder method. You're getting to be rather conceited, and it is quite time you set about correcting it. You have a good many little gifts, but there is no need of parading them.
Growing up is never easy, and sometimes older sisters can make the waiting worse.
Where are you girls going?
Never mind. Little girls shouldn't ask questions.
Oh, do tell me. I should think you might let me go too.
We can't, dear, because you weren't invited.
Meg, stop talking. You're gonna spoil it all. Amy, you can't go, and don't be a baby.
You girls don't think about anyone but yourselves.
Suppose we take her?
If she goes, I'm not, and if I don't go, Laurie won't like it. And it would be very rude, because he only invited us to go and drag Amy in. I'm sure she wouldn't want to poke her nose in places it's not wanted.
Have to be sensible.
You'll be sorry for this, Jo March. See if you aren't.
Fiddlesticks!
Ready, ladies?
When they got home, they found Amy reading in the parlor. She assumed an injured air as they walked in, didn't look up from her book, nor ask a single question. Upon putting up her hat, Jo's first look was towards the bureau, for in their last quarrel, Amy had soothed her feelings by taking her top drawer and turning it upside down. Everything was in its place, however, and Jo assumed that Amy had forgiven and forgotten her wrongs.
There, Jo was mistaken. The next day, she made a discovery that produced a tempest.
Where's my book? Amy, you've got it.
No, I haven't.
You know where it is, then.
No, I don't.
That's a fib.
No, it isn't. I don't know where your book is now, and I don't care.
You know something about it, and you better tell.
Scold me as much as you like, but you'll never see your silly old book ever again.
Why not?
I burned it up.
My dear book that I have worked over and planned to finish before Father got home? Have you really burnt it up?
I told you I'd make you pay. You were so cross with me yesterday.
You wicked, wicked girl! I will never be able to rewrite it, and I will never forgive you for as long as I live.
Jo's book was the pride of her heart and was regarded by her family as a literary sprout of great promise. Amy's bonfire had consumed the loving work of several years. It seemed a small loss to some, but to Jo it was a dreadful calamity, and she felt it could never be made up to her. Beth mourned as for a departed kitten, and Meg refused to defend her favorite sister. Mrs. March looked stern and grave until Amy felt that no one could love her until she had asked pardon for the act which she regretted now more than anyone.
Jo, please forgive me. I'm very, very sorry.
I will never forgive you.
The next day, nothing seemed to go right. Everyone was cross, and Jo assumed that only Laurie could take her out of herself. It was bitterly cold for that time of year, and probably the last day of ice on the river. So Jo invited Laurie to go skating, and of course, Amy had to tag along. So Jo decided to just ignore her.
Keep near the shore. It isn't safe in the middle.
Amy, did you hear? Never mind.
Bring a rail. Quick, quick!
Amy! Are you sure she's safe?
Quite safe, dear. She's not hurt and won't even take a cold, I think.
If she shall die, it will be my fault. It's my horrible temper. I tried to cure it. I think I have, and then it breaks out worse than ever. Oh, Mother, what shall I do?
Watch and pray, dear. Never get tired of trying, and never think it is impossible.
You just don't know how bad it is. Feels as if I could do anything when I'm in a passion. I am scared one day I will do something dreadful.
Jo, dear, we all have our temptations, and it often takes us all our lives to conquer them. You think your temper is the worst in the world, but mine used to be just like it.
Yours, Mother? Why, you were never angry.
I'm angry nearly every day of my life, Jo, but I've learned not to show it, and I hope to still learn not to feel it, though it may take me another 40 years.
I let the sun set on my anger, and if it weren't for Laurie, it could have been too late. How can I be so wicked?
Jo never did try to recreate her lost masterpiece, but she did continue to write. One summer day, when her sisters had noticed her acting even more oddly than usual, she arrived home with a surprise.
Have anything interesting there?
Oh, just a story. Won't amount to much, I guess.
You better read it aloud. It'll amuse us and keep you out of mischief.
With a loud and a long breath, Jo began reading very fast. The girls listened with interest because the story was amusing and somewhat pathetic, as all the characters died in the end.
I like that about the splendid picture.
I prefer the lovely part. Viola and Angela are two of our favorite names. Isn't that funny?
Who wrote it?
Your sister!
I knew it, Jo. Oh, I'm so proud. Tell us about it. When did it come?
How much did you get for it?
Stop jabbering and I will tell you everything. I submitted 2 stories, and the man said he liked both of them, though he didn't pay beginners, but he would print them in his paper. So I gave him the 2 stories, and today he sent me this. And he said I shall write more, and that they were good.
and that he would have the next ones paid for. And I'm so happy, for in time I will be able to support myself and you girls.
Jo's breath gave out here, and wrapping her head in the paper, she bedewed her little story with a few natural tears. For to be independent and earn the praise of those she loved were the dearest wishes of her heart. In the next few months, Jo wrote a few more stories, and the little family waited happily for the end of the year, when the one member who was missing might join them once again. As fall progressed and that happy day grew nearer, it seemed also to grow dearer, so that when the terrible blow fell, it was all the more shocking.
It's one of them horrid telegram things, Mum.
Mrs. March, your husband is very ill. Come at once.
I shall go at once, but I may be too late. Children, oh children, come help me to bear it.
Lord, keep the dear man. I won't waste my time crying, but get your things ready.
She's right. There's no time for tears now. Be calm, girls, and let me think. Where's Laurie?
Here, ma'am. Oh, let me do something.
Send a telegram at once saying that I will come. The next train goes early in the morning.
What else? I can go anywhere, do anything.
Leave a note at Aunt March's. Jo, grab that pen and paper. No, go, but don't kill yourself riding at a desperate pace. Jo, run to the rooms and tell Mrs. King that I can't come. On the way, grab these things I've put down. I must go prepared for nursing. Hospital stores are not always good. Beth, please go ask Mr. Lawrence for a couple of bottles of wine. I'm not too proud to beg her father. Amy, go ask Hannah to get down the black trunk. And Meg, come help me find my things. I'm half bewildered.
Please sit and let us.
Everyone scattered like leaves before an evil wind. Old Mr. Lawrence came hurrying back to bed, bringing every comfort the kind old gentleman could for the invalid. Later, Miss Meg came hurrying through the entryway with a pair of rubbers in one hand and a cup of tea in the other. She arrived suddenly upon Laurie's tutor, Mr. Brooke.
I'm very sorry to hear of this, Miss March. I came to offer myself as escort to your mother. Mr. Lawrence has commissions for me in Washington, and it'll give me real satisfaction to be of service to her there.
Kind you are. I'm sure Mother will accept. It will be such a relief knowing that someone is there.
Not at all.
Everything had been arranged by the time Laurie returned with a note from Aunt March, enclosing the desired sum and a few lines of what she had already said, of how it was absurd that Mr. March had gone to war and that nothing good would have come of it. Marmee quickly threw the note in the fire and put the money in her purse and continued with preparations, with her lips sealed in a way that Jo would have understood. The quick evening wore away, but there was still no sign of Jo. And everyone began to get anxious. Laurie went out to look for her, for no one knew what she might take into her head.
$25? Jo, I hope you haven't done anything rash.
I didn't beg, borrow, or steal it. It's mine, honestly. And I don't think you can blame me, for I only sold what was mine.
Your hair. Your beautiful hair. Joe, how could you? You're one beauty.
Well, it will do my vanity good. I was getting much too proud of my wig, and it will do my braids good to have that mop off.
She doesn't look like my Joe anymore, but I love her dearly for it.
Tell me about it, Joe.
Why did you do it?
Well, I was going along thinking of what I could do for Father, and seeing all of the rich stores and wanting to dive in. I went into a barber shop and I saw locks on the walls and the prices marked. One blacktail for $40 and not as thick as mine. I just asked them how much they would take for mine.
I don't see how you dared to do it.
Oh, didn't you just feel dreadful when the first cut came?
I never snivel over trifles like that. Though, I confess, I felt a bit queer seeing the dear old hair laid out on the table. The barber's wife saw me looking at it and gave me a long lock to keep. I will give it to you, Marmee, just in memory of past glories gone by. For a crop is so comfortable, I don't think I'll ever have a mane again.
Go to bed and do not talk, for we must be up early and we need all the sleep we can get. Good night, my darlings. He kissed her quietly and went to bed as silently as if the invalid lay in the next room. Beth and Amy soon fell asleep, in spite of great trouble, but Meg lay awake, thinking the most serious thoughts she'd ever known in her short life. Jo lay motionless, but her sister fancied she heard a stifled sob for her one beauty. The clock struck midnight, and the rooms were very still, as a figure glided from bed to bed, smoothing a coverlet here, settling a pillow there, and pausing to look at each unconscious face, to kiss each with lips that mutely blessed, and to pray the fervent prayers which only mothers utter. As she lifted the curtains to look out into the dreary night, the moon suddenly broke from behind the clouds and shone upon her like a bright, benignant face, which almost seemed to whisper in the silence, "Be comforted, dear soul. There is always light behind the clouds."
Dearest Mother, it is impossible to tell you how happy your last letter made us, for the news was so good we couldn't help but laughing and crying. How very kind Mr. Brooke is. Girls are all as good as gold. Joe helps me with doing all sorts of hard jobs, and insists on doing all of them. I'd be afraid she might overdo it if I didn't know her moral fit wouldn't last long. Beth is as regular about her task as a clock and never forgets what you told her. Amy minds me nicely, and I take great care of her.
My precious Marmee, 3 cheers for dear Father. I rushed up to my garret when the letter came and tried to thank God for being so good to me. But I could only cry and say, I'm glad. Didn't that do just as well as any regular prayer? We have such funny times, and now I can enjoy them. For everyone is so desperately good. It's like living in a nest of turtle doves. I made a poem yesterday when I was helping Hannah wash, and as Father likes my silly little things, I put it in to amuse him.
Dear Mother, there is only room for me to send my love and some flowers from the root I've been keeping safe at home for Father. I read every morning, try to be good all day, and sing myself to sleep with Father's tune. Amy wants the rest of the page, so I must stop. I don't forget to cover the holders, and I wind the clock and air the rooms every day.
A song from the suds, queen of my tub, I merrily sing, while the white foam rises high, and we sturdily wash and rinse and wring, and fasten the clothes to dry. I wish we could wash from our hearts and souls the stains of the week away. Then on earth there would be indeed a glorious washing day.
Ma chérie, Mama, we are all well. I do my lessons always, and never cooperate with the girls. Meg says I mean contradict, so I put in both words and you can take the properest. Laurie's not as respectful as he ought to be. Now I'm almost in my teens. He calls me chick and hurts my feelings by talking French to me very fast whenever I say merci or bonjour, as Hattie King does.
I bear my troubles well, but I do wish Hannah would put more stars in my aprons and have buckwheats every day. Can she? Didn't I make that interrogation point nice?
Mr. Lawrence watches over us like a motherly old hen, as Joe says, and Laurie is very kind and neighborly. Hannah is a perfect saint, and she does not scold at all. And she also calls me Miss Margaret, which is very proper, you know. We are all well and busy, but we long day and night to have you back.
Dear Ms. March, I just drop a line to say we got on First Street. The girls is clever and fly around right smart. Miss Meg is going to make a proper good housekeeper. Joe does be all for going ahead, but she don't stop to calculate first, and you never know where she's like to bring up. Beth is the best of little critters, and a sight of help to me, being so dependable. Amy does well without fretting. Mr. Laurie turns the house upside down frequent, but he heartens the girls, so I let them have full swing. The old gentleman sends a heap of things, and is rather wearing, but he means well, and it ain't my place to say nothing. My bread is riz, so no more at this time.
Head nurse of Ward Number 2, all serene on the Rappahannock. Troops in fine condition, commissary department well conducted. The home guard under Colonel Teddy always on duty. Commander-in-Chief General Lawrence reviews the army daily, and Quartermaster Hannah keeps order in camp. A salute of 24 guns was fired on receipt from Good News of Washington, and a dress parade took place at headquarters.
Dear Madam, the little girls are all well. Beth and my boy report daily. Hannah is a model servant and guards pretty Meg like a dragon. Glad to find weather holds. Pray make work useful and draw on me for funds if expenses exceed your estimate. Don't let your husband want anything. Thank God he is with me. Your sincere friend and servant, James Lawrence.
Commander-in-Chief sends best wishes, in which he's hardly joined by Colonel Teddy.
I send my duty to Mr. March, and hope he's seen the last of his Amelia. Yours respectful, Hannah Mullet.
Give my love to Father and to dear Mr. Brooke, and believe me, ever on your own.
Give Father my lovingest hug that ever was, and kiss yourself a dozen times for your...
Kiss dear Father on the cheek he calls mine, and do come soon to your loving.
Adieu, I send heaps of love to Papa, your affectionate daughter, Meg. Topsy-turvy Joe.
Little Beth.
Amy Curtis March.
Go and see the Hummels. You know Mother told us not to forget about them. Can't you, Joe?
It's too stormy for me with my cold.
I thought it was almost well.
Well, it's well enough for me to go hang out with Laurie, but not well enough for me to go see the Hummels.
Why don't you go yourself?
I have been, every day. But the baby's sick, and I don't know what to do for her. Miss Hummel goes away to work, and Loshkin takes care of it. They get sicker and sicker.
I'll go tomorrow, I promise.
Have Hannah make you a treat to take round, Beth. It will do you good. I'd go, but I want to finish my writing.
I have a headache and I'm tired, so I thought maybe some of you would go.
Amy will be in presently, I'm sure. So, Beth lay down on the sofa, the girls returned to their work, and the Hummels were forgotten. An hour passed. Amy did not come. Meg went to her room to try on a new dress. Joe was absorbed in her story. Hannah was asleep before the kitchen fire. So Beth quietly put on her little brown hood and slipped out into the chilly air. It was late when she got back. No one saw her creep into her room.
Half an hour later, Joe returned. She went to Mother's room for something, and found little Beth sitting on the floor, looking grave. She was red and held a camphor bottle in her hand.
Christopher Columbus, what's happened?
Stay away! We've
had the scarlet fever, haven't you?
Years ago when Meg did. Why?
Oh, Joe, the baby's dead.
What baby?
Miss Hummel's. She died in our arms before Miss Hummel got home.
How dreadful for you, dear.
It wasn't dreadful, Joe, only so sad. I saw in a minute the baby was sicker, but Washington had said her mother had gone for the doctor, so I took the baby and let Lottie rest. She seemed asleep, but all of a sudden gave out a little cry and trembled, and lay very still.
Don't cry, dear. What did you do?
I just sat and held her softly till Miss Hummel came with the doctor. He said she was dead. I then looked at Henrik and Mina. You have sore throats. Scarlet fever, ma'am. Ought to have called me before. Miss Hummel told me she was poor and had tried to cure the baby herself, but it was too late. She could only hope he would take care of the others and would have to rely on charity for his pain. He smiled then and was kinder, and I stayed and cried with them. So he turned around all of a sudden and told me to take belladonna right away.
It is my fault if you are sick.
I guess I won't have it badly. I looked in Mother's book and then read that it begins with headaches, sore throat, and queer feelings like mine. So I took some belladonna, and I feel better.
I'll call for Hannah. She knows all about sickness. Hannah!
Joe, don't let Amy come. She's never had it, and I should hate to give it to her.
Hannah, that good soul, was awake in a minute and took the lead at once, assuring that there was no need to worry. Everyone had scarlet fever. Now, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll have Dr. Banks just to take a look at you, dear, and see that we start right. We'll send Amy off to Aunt March's for a spell, to keep her out of harm's way. And one of you girls can stay home and take care of Beth for a day or two.
I'll stay. I'm the oldest.
I was supposed to do the errands. I'll stay.
I'll go and tell her.
Dr. Banks came, and Amy was ordered off at once. And she departed in great state, with Joe and Laurie as escort. Aunt March received them with her usual hospitality.
What do you want now?
Laurie retired to the window, and Joe told her story.
No more than I expected if you're allowed to go poking among poor folk. Amy may stay here and make herself useful if she isn't sick, which I've no doubt she will be. Don't cry, child. It worries me to hear people sniff. Well, what do you hear from your mother?
Father is much better.
Well, that won't last long, I fancy. March never did have any stamina. Well, Joe, you'd better go at once. It isn't proper to be gadding about so late with a, rattle-pated boy like this.
Beth did have a fever and was much sicker than anyone but the doctors and Hannah suspected. Meg stayed home, lest she should infect the Kings, and kept house. Feeling very anxious and a bit guilty when she wrote letters in which no mention was made of Beth's illness. Hannah wouldn't hear of Mrs. March being worried for such a trifle.
Jo devoted herself to Beth day and night, which wasn't a hard task. Beth was very patient and bore her pain uncomplainingly. But there came a time during the fever fits when she would play on the little coverlet as if it was her own piano, and try to sing with a voice so hoarse that no music was left. And when she didn't recognize the familiar faces around her and called imploringly for her mother.
It was then that Meg realized how rich she had been in things more precious than the luxuries that money could buy.
It was then that Jo learned to love Beth for her sweetness and unselfish nature to live for others.
And Amy, in her exile, longed to be home, that she might work for Beth, remembering how many forgotten tasks those willing hands had done for her.
If God spares Beth, I promise to love and serve him all my life.
The 1st of December was a wintry day indeed for them, for a bitter wind blew, snow fell fast, and the year seemed getting ready for its death. When Dr. Banks came that morning, he looked long at Beth and said, "If Mrs. March can leave her husband, she'd better be sent for." The girls never forgot that night. No sleep came to them as they kept their watch.
Goodbye, my Beth. Goodbye.
The fever's turned. She's sleeping natural. Her skin's damp and she rests easy. Oh, praise be given. Oh, my goodness me.
If Mother could only be here now.
See, I thought this would barely be ready to lay in Beth's hand tomorrow, but it's blossomed into the night. So now I mean to put it here, in a little vase, so that when she wakes, first thing she sees is a face.
Girls, she's come. She's come.
Even in their joy, they couldn't forget about the other Hall in their family. Meg sat down immediately to write and tell him the good news.
Quite right and beautifully written. Please add that I send my love to John.
Oh, John?
Yes, he's like a son to us, and we're very fond of him.
I'm glad. He's so lovely. Good night, Mother.
Mail call. Amy. Meg. Marmee. Meg. Yours is all sealed up. Teddy never does mine like that.
Oh no, he didn't send it. Oh, Joe, how could you?
Me? I've done nothing.
You wrote this and Laurie helped you. How could you be so cruel?
My dearest Margaret, I can no longer restrain my passion and must know my fate before I return. I dare not tell your parents yet, but I think they would consent if they knew that we adored one another. I implore you to say nothing to your family yet, but to send one word of hope through Laurie to your devoted John. Oh, the little villain. I'll give him a hearty scolding and bring him over to beg pardon.
Stop, Joe. You must clear yourself first. You played so many pranks, I'm afraid you've had a hand in this.
I have never seen these letters. On my life I haven't. If I had written these, I would have written something more sensible. You should know better than to think that Mr. Brooke would write such stuff as this.
It's like his writing.
Oh, Meg, you didn't answer it?
When I received the first letter from Laurie, he looked as if he didn't know anything about it. I was worried at first, but I realized how you liked Mr. John. So then I decided to keep my little secret for a few days.
What did you say to him?
Well, I said that I was too young to get married and that I didn't wish to have secrets from you and he must speak to Father.
What did he say to that?
He said that he's never sent any love letters at all, and he's sorry that my roguish sister Jo should take liberties of our names.
Mr. John Brooke hasn't seen either of these letters. Teddy wrote both of them and keeps yours to gloat over. Oh, when I get my hands on him.
When Laurie arrived, under guard and much against his will, Meg immediately fled upstairs. One look at Mrs. March's face was enough to tell the poor boy how deep his troubles were, but he was so heartily sorry that Jo forgave him at once, though she thought it prudent not to show it. Mrs. March's grave face relaxed whenever Laurie declared that he would abase himself like a worm in front of the injured damsel. Before many days had gone by, Meg had pardoned him as well.
Now and then in this workaday world, things do happen in storybook fashion. For half an hour after everyone said they could only handle a single drop more, the drop came.
Here's another gift for the March family.
As the initial excitement turned to quieter joy, Mrs. March began to thank Mr. Brooke for his faithful care of her husband, at which Mr. Brooke suddenly remembered that Mr. March needed rest, and seizing Laurie, he retired. After supper, the two invalids were ordered to rest, which they did by both sitting on the couch and talking hard.
Don't you guys remember the dismal Christmas we were talking about having last year? Do you remember?
It's been a pleasant year on the whole. We're glad to have you back.
I'm glad it's over, because now we've got you.
Well, I've made several discoveries today.
Oh, tell us what they are.
Here's one. I remember a time when this hand was light and smooth, and your first care was to keep it so. It was very pretty then, but to me, it is much prettier now. For in these seeming blemishes, I read a little history. This hardened palm has earned something better than blisters, and I'm sure the sewing done by these pricked fingers will last a long time. So much goodwill went into the stitches. I'm proud to shake this good, industrious hand, and I hope I shall not soon be asked to give it away.
What about Jo? Please say something nice. She has tried so hard and has been so good to me.
Her face is rather thin and pale just now from watching in anxiety, but I like to look at it, for it has grown gentle. She takes care of a certain little person in a motherly way that delights me. I rather miss my wild girl, but if I get a strong, helpful, tender-hearted woman in her place, then I shall be most delighted. I don't know if the shearing sobered our black sheep, but I do know that in all Washington there is nothing beautiful enough to be bought with the $5 and $20 that my good girl sent me.
Now, Beth.
There's so little of her. I'm afraid to say much for fear she will slip away altogether, though she is not so shy as she used to be. I've got you safe, my Beth, and I will keep you so, please God. And I observed that Amy gave Meg her place tonight at dinner, ran errands for her mother all afternoon, and has waited on everyone with patience and good humor, and has decided to mold her character as carefully as she molds her little clay figures. I am glad of this, for though I should be proud of a graceful statue made by her, I shall be infinitely prouder of a lovable daughter with a talent for making life beautiful to herself and others. For the next week, the family hovered about Mr. March like bees around the queen, neglecting everything to look at, wait upon, and listen to the new invalid who was nearly killed by kindness. As he sat propped up on the couch next to Beth, with the other three close by, and Hannah popping her head in now and then to peek at the dear man, nothing seemed needed to complete their happiness.
But something was needed, and the elder ones felt it, though none confessed that. Mr. and Mrs. March watched anxiously as they looked at Meg. Meg was silent, shy, absent-minded, started when the bell rang, and colored when John Brooke's name was mentioned.
walked by, and seeing Meg in the window seemed to fill him with a melodramatic fit. He thrust his knee into the ground, banged on his chest, tore at his hair, and clasped his hands imploringly as if begging to summon food. Meg told that boy to stand up and act right, and he stumbled around the corner as if in utter despair.
What does the goose mean?
He is showing you how your John will go by and by. Charming, isn't it?
Don't call him my John. It isn't proper or true. I've told you, I don't care about him and there isn't anything to be said.
But something has been said, and Laurie's mischief has spoiled you for me. Mama sees it too. I don't mean to plague you, but if you're going to do something, don't wait. Get it over with.
I can't till he speaks.
You wouldn't know what to say even if he did.
I know just what I'll say. I've planned it all out. I'll say it quite calmly and decidedly. Thank you, Mr. Brooke. You are very kind, but I do not wish to enter an engagement at this time, for I am too young. And then I will walk away with dignity.
Good afternoon. I came to get my, to see how your father is today.
He'll get it for you. It's in the rack.
Mother would like to speak to you. Pray sit down. I'll go and get her.
Don't go. Are you afraid of me, Margaret?
How can I be afraid when you've been so kind to Father? I only wish I could thank you.
Shall I tell you how?
Please don't. Please don't.
I won't trouble you. I just want to know if you like me a little, Mag.
I'm sorry, I can't.
Will you try and find out? I can't go to work with any heart until I learn whether or not I'm to get my reward at the end or not.
I'm too young.
I'll wait, and in the meantime, you could learn to like me a little. Would it be a very hard lesson?
Not if I choose to learn it.
Please choose to learn, Mag. I love to teach, and it is easier than German.
I don't choose. Now please go away and let me be.
Poor Mr. Brooke looked as if his lovely castle about the air was tumbling around his ears. What would have happened next, I can't say, if Aunt March had not come hobbling in at this interesting minute, hoping to surprise the family. She did surprise two of them so much, in fact, that my apologies, that Meg started as if she had seen a ghost, and Mr. Brooke vanished into the study. Well, dear me, what's all this?
Miss Father's friend, I'm so surprised to see you.
That's, evident. But what is Father's friend saying to make you look like a peony? There's mischief going on, and I insist upon knowing what it is.
We were just talking. Mr. Brooke came for his umbrella. Shall I call Mother?
Not yet. I've something to say to you. Tell me, do you mean to marry this, cook? If you do, not 1 penny of my money ever goes to you. Remember that. Now, Aunt March possessed, in perfection, the art of rousing the spirit of opposition in the gentlest people, and enjoyed doing it. If Aunt March had begged Meg to accept John Brooke, she probably would have declared that she couldn't think of it. But as it was,
I will marry who I would like, and you can leave your money to whoever you please.
Is that the way you take my advice, miss? You'll be sorry for it by and by when you've tried love in a cottage and found it a failure.
It can't be a worse one than what people find in big houses. Mother and Father like John.
Your parents, my dear, have no more worldly wisdom than a pair of babies. This Rook is poor and hasn't got any rich relations, has he?
No, but he has many warm friends.
You can't live on friends. Try it and see how cool they'll grow.
John is good and wise. He's got heaps of talent and he's willing to work. He's energetic and he's brave. Everyone likes him, and I'm proud to think that he cares about me.
He knows you've got a rich aunt, child. That's the secret of his liking.
And March, how dare you say such a thing? I won't listen to you for one more minute. My John wouldn't marry for any more money than what I would. I know I shall be with him. I've been happy so far being poor, I'm not afraid of it.
Well, I wash my hands of this whole affair. You are a willful child, and you've lost more than you know by this piece of folly. Don't you expect anything from me when you're married. Your Mr. Book's friends can take care of you. I'm finished with you forever.
Nobody knew what went on in the parlor that night, but a great deal of talking was done. And quiet Mr. Brooke surprised his friends with the eloquence with which he pleaded his suit and persuaded them to plan everything just how he wanted. And so the curtain falls on Meg, Beth, Joe, and Amy, and the first act of the domestic drama called Little Women.
do look just like our own dear Meg, only so very sweet and lovely that I would hug you if it wouldn't crumple your dress.
Oh, Amy, Joe, Beth, please hug and kiss me, and don't mind the dress. I'll put a great many crumples of this sort into it today.
This wedding was to be as natural as possible, with no grand ceremony or performance. When Aunt March arrived, she was scandalized to see the bride come running to welcome her.
Upon my word, here's the state of things. Don't be seen till the last minute, child.
I'm not a show, Auntie, and no one's coming to stare at me.
Jupiter Raymond! Joseph's at the cake again.
Don't let that Lawrence boy near me. He worries me worse than mosquitoes.
There was no bridal procession, but a sudden silence fell as the young couple took their places. Mother and sisters gathered close, and the fatherly voice broke more than once as he pronounced the words that bound two young hearts. The bridegroom's hand trembled visibly, and no one heard his replies. But Meg looked straight up into her husband's eyes and said, "I will," with such tender trust that even Aunt March sniffed.
Meg cried, the first kiss for Marmee. During the next 15 minutes, everyone availed themselves to the fullest extent, from Mr. Lawrence to old Hannah.
Bless you, dearie, 100 times. The cake ain't hurt of mine. Everything looks lovely.
I wish you well, my dear. I heartily wish you well. But I think you'll be sorry for it. You've got a treasure, young man. See that you deserve it.
Laurie, my boy, if you ever want to indulge in this sort of thing, just take one of these little marshmallows, and I shall be perfectly happy.
I'll do my best to gratify you, sir.
After the wedding, they settled into two houses. Meg learning how to be a wife, and her sisters pursuing their own destinies. One day, Joe decided to attend a scholarly lecture in the city. The subject was the Great Pyramids, though Joe was much more interested in people than tombs. On her right sat a scholarly lass, absorbed into an illustrated newspaper.
Want to read it? That's a first-rate story.
Joe accepted it with a smile, for she had never outgrown her liking for lads, and soon she was involved in the lurid labyrinth of love, mystery, and murder.
Crime, isn't it?
I think you or I could do as well as this if we tried.
I think I'd be pretty like a girl if I could. She knows just what people like. She gets paid well for writing it.
And so, an idea was born. And soon, Jo's stories were filled with despair and desperation, or as much as her time could allow. 6 weeks is a long time to wait, and an even longer time to keep a secret. But Jo did both. She was running out of hope when a letter arrived.
Everyone, come quick!
Joe electrified the family by appearing before them with the letter in one hand and a check for $100 in the other. Of course, there was a great jubilee, and when the story came, everyone read and praised it. Though when her father had told her that the language was good, the romance fresh and hearty, and the tragedy quite thrilling, he shook his head. You can do better than this, Joe. Aim at the highest and never mind the money.
I think the money's the best part. What will you do with such a fortune?
I think I'll send Marmee and Beth to the seaside for a month or two.
To the seaside they went, and though Beth did not come home as plump and rosy as could be desired, she was much better. And so Joe was satisfied and fell to work in a cheery spirit. The Duke's daughter paid the butcher's bill, a phantom hand put down new carpet, and the curse of the conventries bought new gowns all around.
Encouraged by her success, Jo decided to try and publish her novel. After copying it over 4 times, writing it to all of her confidential friends, and sending it to 3 publishers, she finally disposed of it, on condition that she cut it down 1/3 and omitted all of the parts that she particularly admired.
Don't spoil your book, my girl, for there is more in it than you know.
I think Joe will profit more by taking the trial than by waiting. Criticism is the best test of such work, and we're too partial.
But the thing is, I've been fussing over it so long, I don't know whether it's good, bad, or just indifferent. Well, I wouldn't leave a word out of it. A story is more in the minds of the people and in the action. And if you don't explain along the way, it'll all be a muddle. But Mr. Allen says, cut out the explanation, let the characters tell the story.
Do as he tells you. He knows what will sell, and we don't.
Now, Beth, what do you think?
I should so like to see it printed soon.
So, the young author laid her firstborn on the table and chopped it up as ruthlessly as any ogre. And it was printed, and she got $300 for it, and enough helpful criticism to sink a battleship.
You said criticism would help me, but how can it when it's so contradictory? Look, this man says, an exquisite book full of truth, beauty, and earnestness. The next, full of morbid fancies, spiritualistic ideas, and unnatural characters. Another says, it's one of the best American novels in years. I know better than that. Oh, and then this man says, it's a dangerous book. Dangerous? Well, not being a genius like Keats, it won't kill me. And when I'm ready, I'll up and try again.
While Joe was learning that being an author was not always glamorous, Meg was making the same discovery about married life. And she was determined to be a model housewife. One day, John was requested to order home half a barrel of sugar, a dozen or so jelly jars, but the currants were ripe, and Meg was determined to have jelly. Home came 4 dozen delightful little jelly jars, an extra quantity of sugar, and a small boy to pick the currants. The young housewife fell to work, not having any doubts about her success, for hadn't she seen Hannah do it hundreds of times?
If John had not forgotten all about the jelly, it would have been unpardonable in him to choose that day of all days to bring a friend home to dinner, unexpectedly. It's locked. I'm afraid something has happened. Step into the living room, Mr. Scott, while I look up Mrs. Brooks.
In the kitchen reigned confusion and despair. One dish of jelly trickled from pot to pot, another lay on the floor, and a third sat burning gaily on the stove. Their little servant Lottie sat eating bread and currant wine, while Miss Brooke, who was with her head over her apron, sat sobbing dismally.
My dearest girl, has anything dreadful happened here?
Yes!
Tell me quick then. Don't cry. I can bear anything better than that. Out with it, love.
The jelly won't jail!
Is that all? I can buy you quartz if you want, but for heaven's sake, don't have hysterics. I brought Jack Scott home to dinner and...
A man to dinner, and everything is amiss? John, how could you do such a thing?
Hush! He's in the living room. And I forgot the confounded jelly.
Take that, Scott. Oh, wait.
will not see him, and there isn't any dinner.
John was a mild man, but he was human. And after a long day's work to come to a chaotic house, an empty table, and a crosswise was not exactly conducive to repose. He restrained himself, however, and the little squall would have blown over, but for one unlucky word, "It'll be all right. Just fix us up something to eat. Give us cold meat and bread. And cheese. We won't ask for any jelly."
That is so funny. You must get yourself out of the skirt as you will. Take that Scott up to Mother's and tell him I'm away, sick, dead, anything. I will not see him, and you two can laugh at me and my jelly as much as you want.
What those two creatures did in her absence, Meg never knew, but Mr. Scott was not taken up to Mother's. Lottie reported that they had eaten much and laughed greatly. And the master bid her to take away the pots of jelly and hide the pots. Later that evening, when the two parties calmed down, they met in the parlor.
We're going to have a new moon, my dear.
Have you objection?
My dear.
I'm sorry, John.
No, I am. It was too bad to laugh at the poor little jelly jars. And I'll never again.
Oh, but he did. Bless you, yes, hundreds of times. But so did Meg. Both declared that it was the sweetest jar of jelly ever made, for family peace was preserved in that little jar. The year rolled round and midsummer came to Meg a new experience, the most deepest and tenderest of a woman's life.
How is she? Where is everybody? Why didn't she tell me?
She's resting, happy as a queen, the dear. And you stay here. They were praying. We didn't want no hurricanes around. I'll go get them.
Now close your eyes and hold out your arms.
Oh, I'd rather not. I'll drop it or smash it as sure as fate.
Then you don't get to see.
Okay, I will. Just make sure you're responsible for the damages. Twins by Jupiter! Somebody take them, I'll laugh and drop them.
I wouldn't have told you. I wanted it to be a surprise.
I've never been more staggered in my life. Are they boys? What are their names? Oh, let's take another look.
Boy and girl. Aren't they beauties?
They're absolutely magnificent. Which is which?
I put a pink ribbon on the girl and a white on the boy. French fashion, so you can always tell which is which.
Kiss them, Uncle Teddy.
Oh, but they mightn't like it.
Of course they will. They're used to it by now. Do it this minute.
So this is the boy? Well, he sure punches his fist out like a good one. Come, young Brooke, why don't you pick on someone your own size?
He's to be named John Lawrence, and the girl Margaret, after mother and grandmother, but we'll be calling her, let's see, Jackie, so as not to have two Megs in the house. And I suppose he'll be Jack unless we can find a better name.
Name him Demi-John. You could call him Demi for short.
Timmy and Daisy, I knew Teddy would do it.
Here's Mother.
Well, it's time.
For what?
You promised to make half a dozen calls with me today.
No, I have done a good and many rash and foolish things.
You did. It was a bargain between us. I was to finish the drawing of Beth for you, and you were to go proper leave with me.
If it was fair, but there's a pile of clouds in the east.
It's a debt we owe to society, and there's no one to pay it but you and me.
All right.
Jo hated making calls, but she let her more social sister drag her into it, visiting people who had once visited them. Last on their list was Aunt March.
Oh, let's forget about Aunt March today and just go home. We can run down there anytime.
Aunt March delights us to make the compliment of a formal call. It's a small thing to do, but it gives her pleasure.
What a good girl you are. I wish it was as easy for me to do things to please people.
They found the old lady at home and eager for gossip. Are you going to help with the charity affair, dear?
Yes, Aunt. Miss Chester asked me if I would, and I offered to sit at the table.
I'm not. I hate to be patronized. And the Chesters think it a great favor to ask us to help with the fair.
Well, it gives us great pleasure to help those that appreciate our efforts. Some do not, and that is trying.
I hate favors. They oppress me. I'd rather be perfectly independent and do everything for myself.
Well, I think it's very kind of them to allow me to help in the work and the fun.
Do you speak French, dear?
Pretty well, thanks to you letting me talk to Esther as much as I like.
I don't. I hate French. It's such a slippery, silly sort of language. Well, it's getting on. Come, Amy.
Bye, Aunt March.
Oh. Marge is going abroad next month and wants...
Me to go with her?
No, dear. Not you. It's Amy.
Oh, Mother, but she's too young. It's my turn first. I've wanted this for so long.
I'm afraid it's impossible, June. Aunt says Amy, and it's not for us to dictate.
Amy has all the fun, and I have all the work. It isn't fair.
I'm afraid it's partly your own fault, dear. Here she writes, I planned at first to ask Jo, but as favors burden her and she hates French, I think I won't venture to invite her.
My abominable tongue. When will I learn to keep quiet?
Jo, dear, I'm very selfish, but I couldn't spare you. I'm glad you're not going quite yet.
Now, how many bouquets have you sent Miss Randall this week?
Not one, upon my word. She's engaged.
I'm glad. That's one of your foolish extremities that you do, Teddy. Sending flowers and things to girls whom you don't care two pins.
Well, the girls who I care papers and pins for don't allow me to send flowers and things. So what can I do?
You do flirt desperately, Teddy.
And how I wish I could say, so do you. As I can't, I'll merely just say that I don't see any harm in the little game.
It does look pleasant, but I can't figure out how it's done.
I'm glad you can't flirt, Jo. Some girls go on and on to a point where I'm ashamed of them. Oh, if they knew how we lads talked about them.
If you behaved yourself, they would. But knowing you like their little games, they go on, and then you blame them.
We guys don't like romps and flirts, even if we acted as though we did. The respectable, pretty girls only get talked about in nice manners.
Then why don't you devote yourself to a respectable, pretty girl whom you do like?
You really think so, Jo?
Yes, but you better wait till you're out of college and be fitting yourself in a place in the meantime. You're not half as good for this whoever modest, pretty girl is.
That I'm not.
Mommy, I think I want to go away this winter for a change.
Why, Jo?
I brood too much over my own small affairs. And I want to hop a little ways and spread my wings.
Where will you hop?
To New York. You remember Miss Kirk sent you a letter saying how she wants a respectable young person to go and take care of the children and so?
My dear, go out to service in that great boarding house? But you're writing.
Oh, I will see and hear new things, gain new experiences, and come back with quantities of material.
Are these the only reasons for this sudden fancy?
I fear Laurie is getting too fond of me.
Then you don't care for him?
I do. I love the boy dearly, and I'm immensely proud of him. It's just, I can never feel the same way for him.
I'm glad of that, Jo.
Why?
As friends, you're very happy, and your frequent quarrels soon blow over. But I fear you would rebel if you were mated for life. You are too much alike and too fond of freedom. Are you sure of his feeling for you?
Well, he hasn't said anything, but he does look an awful lot. I better go away to spare him the trouble.
I agree with you, and if it can be managed, you shall go.
London, dearest people. Here I sit at the front window of the Hotel Bath Piccadilly. The trip from the boat was like riding through a long picture gallery full of lovely landscapes. The very tranquil are more tranquil than ours, and the hens have a contented cluck, as if they never get nervous like Yankee biddies. Shopping in Regent Street is perfectly splendid, but I shall get my gloves in Paris. Doesn't that sound sort of elegant and rich?
November. Dear Marmee and Beth, Miss Kirk welcomed me so kindly. I felt at home at once. The two little girls were pretty children, rather spoiled, I fancy. But they took after me, telling them the 7 bad pigs. Today I saw something I liked. As I stood waiting at the head of the stair for a little servant girl to lumber up, I saw a gentleman come along behind her and take a heavy load of coal out of her hands and carry it all the way up, saying, with a kind nod and a foreign accent, "It goes better so. The little back is too young to have such heaviness." When I mentioned it to Miss Kay, she laughed and said, "That must have been Professor Bear. She told me he was from Berlin, very learned and good, but poor as a church mouse, and gives lessons to support himself and the 2 little orphan nephews whom he is educating here. Miss Kay lends him her parlor for his scholars. He's almost 40, so it's no harm, Marmee."
London. Laurie's English friends, Frank and Freddie Vaughn, are here. Tell Beth they asked for her, and we're sorry to hear of her ill health. Aunt is tapping on the wall for the 3rd time, so I really must stop. I really feel like a dissipated London lady riding here so late, with my head so full of pretty things, and my broom a jumble of gowns.
December. When I got to the nursery Saturday, there was such an uproar in the parlor that I looked in, and there was Professor Bear, down on his hands and knees, little Tina, the laundrymaid's daughter, on his back, Kitty leading him with a jump rope, and Minnie feeding 2 small boys with sea cakes and cages built of chairs. "We are playing zoo," explained Kitty. "This mine effluent," added Tina, holding on by Professor's hair. The effluent sat up and looked as much earnestness as any of them, said soberly to me, "If we make too large a noise, you shall hush to us, and we go more softly."
Heidelberg. My dear Mamma, having a quiet hour before we leave for Bern, I'll try to tell you what has happened. Fred has just gone. I haven't flirted, Mother. Truly, I can't help it if people like me. Now, I know Mother will shake her head, and the girls say, "Oh, mercenary little wretch," but I've made up my mind. And if Fred asks me, I shall accept him. Though I'm not madly in love. He is handsome, young, clever enough, and ever so very rich. Much richer than the Lawrences.
A happy New Year to you all, my dearest family. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed your Christmas bundle, for I didn't get it till night and had given up hoping. Speaking of presents, New Year's Day, Mr. Bear gave me a fine Shakespeare. It is one he values much, so you may imagine how I felt when he brought it down and showed me my own name on it. From my friend Frederick Bear. Now don't laugh at his horrid name. It isn't pronounced bear or beer, as people will say it, but something between the two, as only Germans can give it. I hope you will know him someday, Mother. You would admire his warm heart, and Father, his wise head.
Last evening I had a feeling that it was going to happen, and I was ready for it. But when Fred arrived, he only had time to say goodbye. He'd just gotten a letter begging him to come home, for Frank was very ill. But he said in a way that I could not mistake, "I shall soon be back. You won't forget me, Amy. We shall soon meet in Rome, and then, if I don't change my mind, I'll say, yes, thank you, when he says, will you please? Ever your, Amy."
My dearest Beth, I've begun to write again. If I can make some money, I'll take you to the mountains.
It was.
Yes, my friend requested me to send in a story as an experiment.
I think this is not a first attempt.
No, sir. She won a prize for the Barnum Store banner.
Did she? We'll take it if you don't object to a few alterations. It's too long, but if you omit the passages that I am marking, it will be just the right length.
Jo read the passages and was surprised to see that all of the moral reflections she had carefully put in had been stricken out.
But, sir, I thought all stories should have some sort of moral, so I made sure that my sinners repented.
People want to be amused, not preach at. Morals don't sell nowadays.
But that's wicked. I know it's only light entertainment, but I wanted my story to have some sort of higher meaning.
Higher meaning? Do you want a higher meaning or do you want to be paid? You give 25, 30 for stuff like that. Pay when it comes out.
So I guess I'll tell my friend to take it if she has anything better.
Tell her to make it short and spicy, but don't mind the moral. What will your friend like to be named?
No name. She doesn't want her name on it.
As she likes, of course. Comes out next week. Will you call or shall I send?
I'll call. Good morning, sir.
Poor and proud, as usual. But she'll work.
So, you see here, as the poet speaks of his love. Be smart. What do you laugh in my face? Have you no respect for me?
How can I be respectful when you forgot your hat, sir?
It is that little imp Tina who makes me a fool as my cap. Well, it is nothing. But see you, if this lesson goes not well, you too shall wear it. I wish these sensational stories did not come here. They're not for young children to read, nor people to look at.
Jo feared that the paper was the volcano. However, it was not, and her panic subsided. For even if it had been, and one of her tales had been in there, she wouldn't have had a name to betray her.
Jo betrayed herself, however, by a look and a blush, for the professor saw more than most people fancy. You are right to put it from you. I do not think young girls should look at such things. They may pleasure to some, but I would rather give my boys gunpowder to play with as this bad trash.
All may not be bad, only silly.
Well, there's demand for whiskey, but I do not think you and I should care to sell it.
Sorry, Professor. Shall we go on?
I shall hope so. For now, I must attend to my little nephews.
As soon as she went to her room, she got out all of her papers and reread every single one of her stories.
They were all trash, and will soon be worse trash if I continue. I know because I can't stand reading them. What if they were found at home? Or what if Mr. Bear saw them?
Then she stuffed the entire bundle into the stove, thinking that she caught the chimney on fire with the blaze. These adventures aside, the winter was a long and a pleasant one. She stayed with Mrs. Kirk until July. Everyone seemed sad when the day came.
You will come visit us, yes?
Shall I come?
Next month. My friend Laurie is graduating. You'll love the commencement.
But I fear I shall not make the time for that. But I wish your friend much success and you all happiness. God bless you. Now, after the professor's boys were abed, the professor sat looking at his fire, with the air of homesickness lying heavy at his heart. For as early as it was the next morning, he was up to see Joe off. And thanks to him, left her with a bundle of violets to keep her company. As a happy thought, I've made a friend worth having, and I plan to keep him my entire life.
Whatever his motive might have been, Laurie studied to some purpose that year, where he graduated with honor and gave Latin oration with the grace of Phillips and the eloquence of Demosthenes, as his friend said.
Well, girls, I must go to this confounded supper, but I will be back early tomorrow morning. You'll meet me here as usual, ladies?
Yes, I'll come playing Oh All Hail the Conquering King on the Jew's harp.
As Joe saw him the next day, she was distinctly uncomfortable. Yet his next words could not be considered passionate.
Where's the Jew's harp?
Oh, I forgot it.
Joe.
No, Teddy, please.
Joe, we have to do this. And the sooner the better for both of us.
Fine, say what you like and I'll listen.
Joe, I've loved you ever since I've known you. And as hard as I've tried to show it, you won't let me. So now, I'm gonna make you hear me and give me an answer.
I wanted to save you this. I thought you'd understand, but...
Oh, but you girls are so queer. You say no when you mean yes, and you drive a man out of his wits just for the fun of it.
I don't. I never wanted you to care for me so. I went away to keep you from it.
I just ended up loving you all the more. But I've figured out now that I'll never be half as good for you.
You are. You're a great deal too good for me. And I don't know why I can't love you the way you want me to. I've tried, but it would be a lie to say I do when I don't.
Really, truly, Joe?
Really, truly, dear.
You'll be sorry for this someday, Joe.
Where are you going?
To the devil.
Teddy, I wish I could.
Beth thought the mountains too far from home, so Joe took her to the seashore. She was struck by the change in her sister. It had come too gradually for those that see her daily, but for eyes strengthened by absence, the change was shocking.
Oh, Beth.
Oh, dear, I'm glad you know. I tried to tell you, but I couldn't.
Oh, Beth.
I've known it for a while now, and I'm used to it. It's not so hard to bear.
You kept it all to yourself?
I tried to think it was my imagination, but when I saw you all so well and strong and full of happy plans, it's hard to feel that I could never be like you. And then I was miserable, Joe.
Why didn't you tell me and let me comfort you?
I wasn't sure. No one said anything. It would have been selfish to frighten you all with Mommy so anxious about Meg and Amy away, and you so happy with Laurie. At least I thought so then.
But you have to get better.
I try, but it's like the tide, Joe. When it turns, it goes slowly, but it can't be stopped.
I don't think I'll have to tell her when we get home. I think we'll see.
I don't want any secrets. It's better to prepare them. Meg has John and the kids to keep her company, but you must stand by Father and Mother when I'm gone. Won't you, Joe?
I'll try, Beth. But I won't let you give up yet. I won't let you think it's true.
I feel like I was never intended to live long. I never made any plans about what I'd do when I grew up. I can never imagine myself anything but stupid little Beth trotting about at home, of no use anywhere but there. I never wanted to go away. And the hard part now is leaving you all. Dear little bird, see how tame it is. I like peeps better than gulls. They are not so wild and handsome, but they seem happy, confiding little things. I used to call them my birds last summer, and Marmee said they reminded her of me. Busy little creatures, always near the shore, and always chirping that contented little song of theirs. You are the gull, Joe. You're strong and wild, fond of the storm, flying far out to sea. Meg is the turtle dove, and Amy is like the lark, trying to get up among the clouds, but always dropping down into its nest again. I hope I shall see her again, but she seems so far away.
She's coming home next spring. I will have you well and rosy by then.
Oh dear, don't hope anymore. It'll do you no good. I think the time will go out easily if you help me.
After Laurie's triumphant graduation and his miserable failure at love, his grandfather persuaded him to go abroad and forget. He really did his best to try and enjoy himself. One day, in Nice, he was strolling down the lake, admiring the fashionably dressed young ladies, when especially one, beautiful one, caught his eye. She was young, blonde, and dressed in blue.
Amy?
Oh, Laurie, is it really you?
It really is.
Well, how have you been? How's your grandfather? Where are you staying? When did you come?
Very well. Last night I had the shebang.
Oh, I was going for a walk and longing for company. Now, tell me all about yourself.
Laurie went to Nice intending to stay a week, but ended up staying a month. Every day, Meg wakened in his estimation, but he sank in hers.
Laurie, when are you going to go back to your grandfather?
Very soon.
You've said that a dozen times.
Short answer, safe trouble.
He's expecting you, and you really ought to go.
I know it.
Then why don't you do it?
Oh, natural depravity, I suppose.
Natural endeavors, you mean? What would Jo say if she saw you now?
As usual. Go away, Titty. I'm busy.
I have a new name for you. Lazy Lawrence. Do you want to know what I honestly think of you?
Pining to be told.
Well, I despise you.
Why, if you please?
Because with every chance for being useful, happy, and good, you're nothing but faulty, lazy, and miserable.
Pray, go on. This is so interesting.
Yes, selfish people do like to talk about themselves. Well, with every chance, I mean, you're selfish with money, talent, position, wealth, and health, and, oh my goodness, you're like that old vanity. Now, I know it's harsh, but it's the truth, so I must say it. You can find nothing to do but dawdle, and instead of being the man you ought to be, you are nothing but...
Oh, St. Lawrence on a gridiron.
I knew you'd take it so. You may call us angels until we actually try to do you some good, and then you laugh at us when you listen.
Oh, I'll do good. I promise I will.
Aren't you ashamed of a hand like that? It looks like it's done nothing for as you want the best gloves and pick flowers for pretty girls. At least you have no diamonds or big seal rings on it, except for that old one Joe gave you. Oh, how I wish you were here to help me now.
So do I.
They ought to have told me. Joe wouldn't be kind to you.
She was kind, just not in the way I'd like. It's lucky for her she didn't marry a good-for-nothing like me. But it is her fault, and you may tell her so.
I didn't know, but I can't help but wish you'd take it better, Teddy dear.
How could I? I failed. Joe wouldn't love me.
You mean graduating well? That was nothing more than you ought to have done for your grandfather's sake. It would have been shameful to fail when everyone knew you could do so well.
But if I don't have Joe, then I did fail.
There. What do you think?
Oh, how well you draw. Yes, that's me. you've improved.
And you?
My Beth, sitting patient in shadow, to the blessed light shall come. A serene and saintly presence sanctifies our troubled home. Oh, my sister, passing from me, out of human care and strife, leave me as a gift those virtues which have beautified your life. Dear, bequeath me that great patience which has power to sustain a cheerful, uncomplaining spirit in its prison house of pain. Give me that unselfish nature, that with charity divine can pardon wrong for love dear's sake. Meek heart, forgive me mine. Henceforth, safe across the river, I shall see you forevermore. A beloved household spirit waiting for me on the shore. Hope and faith, born of my sorrow, guardian angels shall become, and the sister gone before me, by their hands shall lead me home.
Joe, I found this and read it. Have I meant all that to you, Joe?
Oh, Beth, so much.
And I don't feel that I've wasted my life. And now, when it's too late to do better, it means so much to know that someone has loved me so much. It feels as if I've helped them.
More than anyone in the world, Beth.
Flowers were up early that spring, and the birds came back to say goodbye to Beth, who, like a tired but trustful child, clung to the hands that had led her all her life, as father and mother guided her tenderly through the valley of the shadow and gave her up to God.
For the first time in many months, the fire was out. My place in the corner was empty, and the room was very still. A bird sang on a budding bough, and the spring sun steamed in upon the pillow.
A face so full of peace that we who loved it best smiled through our tears and thanked God that our Beth was well at last.
Amy,
Oh, Laurie, I knew you'd come.
I came as soon as I heard. I wish I could offer you some words of comfort, but
Beth is well and happy, and I mustn't wish her back. Much as I want to see them, I dread going home. But we won't talk about it now. It makes me upset, and I want to enjoy you while you're here. You needn't go right away, need you?
not if you want me, my dear.
Oh, very much.
The pain of their loss seemed to have broken down all the barriers between Laurie and Amy. From that moment on, they spent nearly all their time together. They went for walks, attended balls, and even went for rows on the lake.
You must be tired. Let me row. It'll be good for me. For since you came, I've been nothing but lazy and luxurious.
I'm not tired, but I will let you take your oar. There's room enough.
How well we pull together.
So well, in fact, that it makes me wish we could always pull the same boat. Will you, Amy?
Back home, Jo tried to live up to her promise to Beth, but she found it heavy going, for she had now lost the one whose example would have made serving others easier to learn.
Why must life be so drear, Marmee? I can't settle my mind to anything.
Why don't you write? That always used to make you happy.
I have no heart to write. And even if I did, nobody wants my things.
We do. Write something for us and never mind the rest of the world.
I don't know if I can.
But an hour afterward, when she peeped into the garret, there she was, scratching away.
Jo never knew how it happened, but something got into that story that went straight to the hearts of those who read it. For when her family had laughed and cried over it, her father sent it, much against her will, to one of the popular magazines. And to her utter surprise, it was not only paid for, but others requested.
I don't understand. What can there be in such a simple story that make people praise it so?
There is truth in it, Jo. That is the secret. You wrote with no thought of fame or fortune. You put your heart into it.
If there is any heart or truth in what I write, it is because of you, Marmee, and Beth.
So taught by love and sorrow, Jo wrote her little stories and sent them out to the world to make friends for themselves and for her, finding it a charitable world for these humble wanderers. They brought back comfortable tokens to their mother, like beautiful little children whom good fortune overtakes.
My dear Jo, you are glad to see me then?
Of course, my blessed boy. Words can't express. Where's Amy?
Well, your mother's got her down at Meg's, and once they had my life in their clutches, there was no getting her out of there.
Your what?
Oh, the dickens! Now I've done it.
You've gone and got married?
Yes, but please, it will never happen again, on my word.
Actually married?
Very much so.
Oh, mercy on us. What dreadful thing will you do next? Get up, you ridiculous boy. Come and fess up, Teddy.
Oh, how good it hears you to call me Teddy. No one calls me that anymore.
What does Amy call you?
My lord.
Well, you look it.
They're coming about it, and I wanted to be the one to tell you.
Of course you did. And you spoiled your story by starting at the end. Now, start over again and tell me it right.
Well, my grandfather wanted to come home, and since he only took me abroad to make me happy, I had to go with him. But I also didn't want to leave Amy, and Aunt March had all these English notations about things like chaperones that I just said, why don't we get married so we can do as we please?
Where is she? Where's my dear old Jo? Oh!
Blessed if she ain't in silk from head to foot. Ain't it a relishing sight to see her sitting there as fine as a fiddle?
She's turned into a real lady now, hasn't she?
Love has done good for our little girl.
She's had a good example before her all her life, my dear.
Although Jo was happy for her sister and her new brother, she felt more alone than ever now that her faithful Teddy had also deserted her. Then she heard a knock at the door that made her loneliness go away.
Oh, Mr. Bear, it's so good to see you.
Not to see you, Miss March. But you have a party.
Oh, no, it's just family. Come in and make one of us.
Well, if I shall not be Monsieur de Chartres, then I will gladly meet them all. But I have heard you have been ill, my friend.
Not ill, just sorrowful. I've had trouble since I saw you last.
Yes, I heard that. My heart was sore for you.
Father, Mother, this is my friend, Mr. Bear.
If the stranger had any doubts about his reception, they were put to rest in a minute. For as the night wore on, Mr. Bear sat looking about himself, with the air of a traveler, who knocks at a strange door, and when it opens, finds himself at home.
Dear old fellow, thought Jo, as she saw her friend's uncharacteristically elegant and neat appearance. He couldn't have gone himself up with more care if he had been going a-wooing.
Hello there. I am Laurie, and this is my wife, Amy. And we would just like to say that there is always a warm welcome for you over the way.
I fear I shall too be leaving, but I will gladly come again. Now, if you will give me leave, then, madam, for there is business in the city that needs attending to.
Of course.
I suspect that that is a wise man.
I know he's a good one.
I'm so glad you like him.
Mrs. Lawrence,
My lord,
I believe that man intends to marry our dear Jo.
I hope so, don't you?
Well, I think of him kind of like a trump. And I also wish he was a little younger and a great deal richer.
It doesn't, if they love each other, it doesn't matter a particle how young or poor they are. A woman should never marry for money.
If memory serves, you made it your duty to make a rich match. That does account for a good-for-nothing like me.
I forgot you were rich when I said yes. I would have married you if you hadn't a penny.
And how could I doubt it? You refused a richer man for me and won't let me give you half of what I want to now.
Laurie, should you care if Jo does marry Mr. Bear?
Is that the trouble, is it? I thought there was something. I am very happy that Jo is getting married, and I am the happiest man in the world. I will have no trouble dancing at Jo's wedding with heels as light as my heart.
Well, he is quite poor, though. They should have trouble. But just yesterday, Jo said she thought poverty was a beautiful thing, so...
She'll think the opposite when she has a literary husband and 12 little professors and professorials running about.
How wonderful it is to be able to help others. That was always a dream of mine, to be able to give freely. And now, thanks to you, that dream has come true.
And so it was decided then and there. The Lawrences would spend their life helping others. It was the best use of money that either could think of, and they would get to work together. Charity is its own reward, but for these youngsters, they found more reward than even most. But it was not for them to give Jo what she most wanted. No, that honor fell upon someone else.
You better take the little umbrella, dear. It looks like rain.
Oh, yes, Marmee. I'm going to the store. Do you need anything?
Yes, I want some twilled silesia, a paper of No. 9 needles, and 2 yards lavender ribbon. If you meet Mr. Bear, bring him home to tea. I quite long to see the dear man. The dry goods stores were not down among the counting houses, banks, and wholesale warerooms where gentlemen must congregate, but Jo found herself in that part of town before she did a single errand. A drop of rain on her cheek reminded her of the little umbrella that she had forgotten in her hurry.
Oh, foolish me. Of course I'd go out here in all my best things, just in the hope to see Mr. Bear. I'm ashamed of you, Jo.
With that, she rushed across the street so impetuously that she narrowly got annihilated by a passing wagon.
I seem to know of a young girl who goes very narrowly under many horses' noses and bravely through some mud. What are you doing, my friend?
I'm shopping.
Well, would you like help? I would help you with your bundles.
Yes, thank you.
Oh. I ought to go say goodbye to your family. Because do you think I would say not farewell to those who have been so heavenly kind to me?
You are leaving them.
I'm afraid so. It is done. It is over.
Successfully, I hope?
I ought to think so. I have found a way for me which I may earn my bread and provide for those.
Well, tell me all about it. I'd love to hear about the boys.
My friends have secured me a place in a college where I may work from home and provide enough money for dear meal and fruit.
That's amazing. You can work so closely and come and visit me.
I'm afraid not, however, for this place is in the west.
So far away.
So, may I have a favor to ask of you?
Yes?
I need to go shopping and buy a dress for Tina, but I'm too stupid to go alone. I was going to ask if you could go with me, provide your kind words and help.
Yes, sir.
And also, maybe a shawl. Yes, a big warm shawl for Tina's mother. That shall be a friendly gift.
I'll do it with pleasure, Mr. Bear.
Hush, dearest. Why do you cry?
Because you're going away.
My God. Joe, I have nothing but much love to give to you, but I wanted to make sure I'm more than a friend first. Am I? Do you have a place in your heart for me?
Oh, yes! Why did you wait to tell me?
I wanted to say something that day in New York, but I feared thy handsome friends would be shocked to see. So I spoke not. But if I had said something, would you have said yes?
I don't know. I feel I had no heart then.
That I cannot believe. It was asleep till the fairy princess came through the wood and waked him up. Oh well, the este living isn't the best day, but that I do not expect.
Yes, the first love is always the best. Though I have never had another, Teddy's only been a friend.
I shall rest happy, and make sure that you will give me all.
Why did you come right when I wanted you?
It is this. I found it in the magazine.
This is mine, but I published it anonymously. How did you know?
I know. When I read it, there's a little verse that's called to me. Read and find it, and I'll promise you will not go into the wet.
4 little chests, all in a row, dim with dust and worn by time, all fashioned and filled long ago by children now in their prime. 4 little names, one on each lid, carved out by a childish hand, and underneath their lid hid histories of the happy bond. Meg on the first lid, smooth and fair, I look in with loving eyes, for folded here, with well-known care, a goodly gathering lies. For the record of a peaceful life, gifts to gentle child and girl, a bridal gown, lines to a wife, a tiny shoe, a baby curl. Ah, happy mother, well I know, you hear, like a sweet refrain, lullabies ever soft and low in the falling summer rain. Joe on the next lid, scratched and worn, and within a motley store of headless dolls, of school books torn, birds and beasts that speak no more, half-writ poems, stories wild, April letters, warm and cold, diaries of a willful child, hints of a woman elderly old, a woman in a lonely home, hearing like a sad refrain, be worthy, love, and love will come in the falling summer rain. My bed, the dust is always swept from the lid that bears your name, as if by loving eyes that wept, by careful hands that often came. Death canonized for us one saint, ever less human than divine, and still we lay, with tender plaint, relics in this household shrine. In the songs she sang, without limit, in her prison house of pain, forever are they sweetly blent with the falling summer rain. Upon the last lid's polished field, legend now both fair and true, elegant knight bears on his shield, Amy in the letter's gold and blue. Gay valentines all a dark flames, trifles that have bore their past, and girlish hopes and fears and shames, the record of a maiden's heart, now learning fairer, truer spells, hearing like a blithe refrain, and the silver sound of bridal bells in the falling summer rain. 4 little chests, all in a row, dim with dust and worn by time. 4 women, taught by weal and woe, to love and labor in their prime.
4 sisters, parted for an hour, none lost, one only gone, before made by love's immortal power, nearest and dearest evermore. It is bad poetry, but I felt it when I wrote it. I was lonely.
I read that, and I think to myself, she has a sorrow. She would find comfort in true love, for she has never known it.
What made you come?
I did not want to take you from that also happy home that you come from, if I had no prospect to give you. For who would I be if I would take you with nothing?
I don't fear poverty. I never have. I've lived it long enough to learn to love and work for those I care for.
So, do you have the patience to wait? For I must go and work alone, for I must provide for my boys, and I made a promise to Mina, and even you cannot break them.
Yes, for we love each other, so the rest will come easy.
Oh, Joe, you give me such love and courage, and I have nothing to give you but a full heart and these empty hands.
Not empty anymore.
For a year, Jo and her professor worked and waited and wrote such voluminous letters that the rise in the price of paper had been accounted for, Laurie said. The second year began soberly when Aunt March died suddenly. When their first sorrow was over, for they loved the old woman in spite of her sharp tongue, they found they had cause for rejoice, for she'd left Plumfield to Jo, and that made all sorts of things possible.
It is a fine old place, and will fetch you a handsome sum, for of course you will think so.
No, I don't.
But it's such an immense house, and will take a power of money to keep going. And I take it farming isn't in there's line.
Yes, but the crop we raise will be immensely profitable.
Oh, and what so fine a crop is it to consist of, ma'am?
Boys, I went to open a school for little lads, a loving, homely school, where Fritz can teach and I can care for them.
That's truly a Jovian plan, just like her.
I told him a long time ago, and he said he would love to do it as soon as we got rich. He's been doing that for so long. Not getting rich, taking care of boys. That he will never be. But he could teach and train the boys along with father, and I could scold them and raise them and feed them with mother by my side. Oh, won't it be so fantastic living here at Plum House with wild boys by my side?
But may I inquire how you plan to keep up the place? If all your crop consists of ragamuffins, I don't see it being very valuable in a worldly sense.
Oh, don't be a wet blanket, Teddy. Maybe I'll start with rich boys, and then, once I've gained some ground, take in a ragamuffin or two. For rich children need teaching too, along with poor children. And haven't I brought up one rich child to be an honor to his family?
I'll testify that you tried.
Whenever I have my lads, I will look to you and say, look there, there is your model.
Almost before she knew where she was, Jo found herself married and settled in Plumfield.
A family of 6 or 7 boys sprung up like mushrooms and flourished. Poor boys as well as rich, for Mr. Lawrence was continually finding some touching case of destitution, in begging the bears to take pity on the child, and he would gladly pay a trifle for its support. In this way, the sly old gentleman got round proud Jo and furnished her with the style of boy she most delighted.
And how poor dear Aunt March would have lamented if she'd been there to see the prim, well-ordered Plumfield overrun.
Plumfield never did become a fashionable school, and the professor never did lay up a fortune. But it was just as Jo intended it to be. A home-like place where little boys can receive care, teaching, and kindness.
Before long, every room in the house was soon full, and every plant in the garden soon had an owner. A regular menagerie appeared, where pit animals were allowed.
3 times a day, Joe smiled at her friends from the edge of a long table lined on each side with happy, smiling faces, who looked at her with affectionate eyes from Mother Dear.
As the years went on, 2 little lads came to increase her happiness. How they ever grew up alive in that whirlpool of boys was a mystery to their grandma and aunts, but they flourished like dandelions in spring, and their rough nurses loved and served them well. Yes, Joe, I think your harvest will be a good one.
Not as good as yours, Marnie. For here we all are, all thanks to your